My name is Weil. I'm joined up here by Mayor Tsinman. We were going to present a solution from Yotta and give you a little bit of information on how it worked with a real-life customer, which is the Medical Supply Depot, and Mayor is going to present that portion. Just to get you guys started and give you a little bit of background around our company. Yotta is an adaptive CDN platform. We're a cloud-native service that's implemented much like a CDN. But unlike CDNs, we were really conceived of and brought about to solve a problem that really only exists in the modern internet. Years ago, when CDNs got started with companies like YottaaMeir, the world was a simpler place. And if you heard Peter Bloom speak earlier, he kind of took you through the considerations of form factors changing, devices and network types changing. We bring all those same ideas together, and the reason that we created our technology, the problems that we're trying to solve are also going to be similar. Where you have end users who are trying to consume content, and you have companies who are trying to serve up that content. Typically, they're going to be using something like a CDN in order to provide acceleration for static assets, in order to cache them globally, ideally to do some optimizations to routing for dynamic assets. But what we find is, as mobile networks change and evolve, as devices become more fragmented with different operating systems, different preferences, different browsers, optimizing those experiences consistently across a number of different users and different locations on different devices is a very challenging proposition. And so what Yotta's done is to create this cloud-native platform that can work either in concert with existing CDNs, or extend them, or replace them altogether, so that we can provide end users with the best possible desktop and mobile experience for their web applications. The way that we do it is by focusing first and foremost on context. You have to look at the end user, how they're trying to consume information, the device they have, the network speed they have, the orientation, the viewport size, et cetera, and then make specific decisions in real time in order to really affect the best possible outcome. If you've seen some of the funnier insurance commercials that have come out recently, you've probably snickered about how not everybody is exactly the same, even though they are very similar to one another as a demographic. So if you look at what Yotta does, the first technology that we brought to bear was called context intelligence, which is a closed loop that we create between the end user's browser and our own service, so that we can see all of the details of the device, of the network connectivity, of the browser that they're using, how they're holding the phone, what they're doing inside of it, the events that are being generated, et cetera. Then, in order to ensure that they have the best possible experience, we have Instant On, which is a technology that accelerates every single web page in order to make it pop into the browser and transition very quickly from page to page. So if you're trying to optimize to decrease bounce rates, to decrease abandonment rates, to increase conversion rates, to maybe make it easier to go through a shopping cart, these are some of the considerations that you'll be having in mind when you think about the user's progression through a series of steps. We then also use a technology called application sequencing. Application sequencing then works together with Instant On, which makes pages fast. Context intelligence, which is able to adapt what we actually send to the user and how it works in line with how they're consuming the data, by orchestrating when content is delivered and how it's rendered in the browser. And we do that uniquely out of the box for 4 different use cases. One is for desktop users, another one's for mobile users, and then there are equivalents in search robots or bots in general. Because bots don't have experiences people do, things on mobile are very different from things on desktop. And so for that reason, those are the 4 default profiles that we launch with. Then we look at how all of these things are working with our closed loop feedback system. That helps us understand not only performance, it helps us understand security, and then ultimately, with integrations with third-party analytics systems, how that's impacting the business, which is always the importance of the bottom line. People in this room may or may not have heard that recently Google announced that they're shutting down its page speed service. That actually made some of us very happy at the company, not because we want anything bad to happen to Google, obviously, and not that anything bad is going to happen to Google as a result of that, but because PageSpeed Insights has always been one of those things, and its service as a corollary, that people hold up and say, well, but I looked at it and it says I have to do these things to my website in order to make it fast, in order to make it a better user experience, in order to see the conversions that I'm hoping to realize. And what we know is a series of best practices are just that. There are things that work for some people, they worked for enough people, and they became a best practice. But not every site is the same, and anybody in the room who's ever tried to sell anything will know that everybody that you sell to is unique in their own way. And so what we did was, first of all, focused on a network architecture that allowed anybody to implement our product as long as they've ever implemented any sort of a proxy service like a CDN. We're a cloud-native architecture, and we're open, which to us means that we can work with any of your existing technologies, whether they're on-prem or in the cloud. We're open with APIs that can integrate with any existing service. We integrate today with CDNs like Limelight, Edgecast, CloudFront, Akamai. We also can optimize images even if they're sitting on very common industry solutions like Adobe Scene 7. If you've already arrived at a network architecture that makes sense and is working for you, but there are certain things that are lacking, then one of the primary theses of Yotta was that you shouldn't have to change all of that just to benefit from our service. And so what we create is a virtual private cloud. Everything that we do is optimized within that cloud. That is going to be distributed globally. We set up topologies in line with what customers want. If you have an e-commerce storefront that you have to keep secure, then we have PCI DSS level 1 security. It's been Visa certified. We're getting other certifications for that as well in line with our customers' needs. But we can do everything that we need to do basically for the optimization without you changing your code or your network infrastructure. It's a single DNS change to integrate Yotta. And then inside of the cloud platform, you get a very robust set of technologies that are working all the time to optimize traffic in real time. So we don't need you to orchestrate your code. We don't want you to touch your code. You shouldn't be thinking about the decisions that we're making for you. We're a real-time decisioning system that learns from your end user's interaction and your infrastructure's reactions to those interactions. So if you're requesting content and that content is the same across a number of users, is it dynamic? Sure. You dynamically create your menus. You dynamically create images. You dynamically serve that information up to users. But is it personal to every user that comes? Because if it's not personal but it's dynamic, we can still cache it. We just have to be smarter about understanding when it is and isn't appropriate to serve up that cached content. We have to be able to react very quickly if you want to clear that cached content or if you want to version what's in the cache. And so those are the sorts of things that we focused on within our platform so that when content is flowing through us, we can decide, should it be optimized? Should it be redirected? Should we throttle the traffic because whoever is trying to access the network is either accessing it very aggressively or maybe just slowly enough that we think that there's a Sloloris attack that's being taken out on the infrastructure. Anything like that, our network is set up to capture and adapt to in real time. Now, not everything can be done automatically, of course, and so we do have security features that'll detect things like DOS and DDoS attacks, like these slow attacks that are not volumetric in nature. And they'll notify us so that we can start to pay attention and start to notify the customer and start to kick in the protocols that will protect. But when it comes to optimization, in most cases, and you'll hear this from anybody who's been trying to performance optimize a solution, especially a web application that's constantly changing, you don't want people mired in manual break fixing, in manual testing, and manual optimization. If you have to optimize an image and that can follow a rule, then you should be able to set up that rule. If there are exceptions to it, it should be simple to apply an exception. And then anything in between that's fuzzy, you can figure out via the network and then decide if you have to create a separate rule. But we can apply these optimizations and tune them to our users, saving them a huge amount of time in implementation and cost. It ends up impacting a number of different KPIs. It's not something that you can look at from a web architecture, an e-commerce platform, a media architecture, what have you, and decide those are your magic KPIs and here's the formula for how I'm going to improve them. Instead, we look at if you have a technical problem, if it's DNS related, then we can set up a faster DNS service for you and we can help you prove that those metrics are actually improving. Now, what is the downstream impact of that you're looking for? Typically, it'll be something that we handle with Instant On. How fast is your first and last byte arriving? How fast can we start to render the page in the browser for the end user so that they realize pop, pop, pop from page to page that they're being ushered along the process? And then once they arrive at a page, how do we make sure that there's no impact from JavaScript, jQuery, but not only the ones that you manage and maintain, but the ones that you're forced to integrate from third parties? Facebook is not your widget. Twitter is not your widget. All the business analytics that you rely on to understand the decisions you've been making and the efficacy of those decisions are not your widgets. You don't have control over those. And so we needed a way to make sure that we could maintain the speed of the site, the engagement for users so they don't have choppiness, they don't have gaps, but that you can also always see the business analytics firing, regardless of JavaScript rules, regardless of privacy settings in browsers, and then bring that together with RUM data, with synthetic monitoring data, availability information, and streaming log analytics so that you can get a whole picture of not only performance from an IT perspective, but then performance of your top line from a business perspective, and then realize the bottom line, either savings or growth, that you were looking to achieve with your website. And we do that with a process that we call Validate IT. It's something that's very important for us when we bring customers, like, for example, Mayor online, to show them in real time the impact that we are providing them from a business perspective. So it's easy to say to people, we'll make you 20% faster, we'll make you 30, 40% faster. But what does that mean to you as a business? How do you know if that's actually helping you? Or have you created a slow web problem that somebody's going to be writing a manifesto about? The reality is when we show a customer an onboarding experience through Yotta, we're teaching them how to use the system, we're showing them how the machine learning component works, we're taking them through a white glove onboarding, but then we're also instrumenting their traffic and helping them see in real time via their own analytics, not ours, just exactly what we're moving the needle on. Are we improving bounce and conversion rates? Well, how long does it take for you to figure that out? Let's set up a POC in the right way. Prescriptively, we'll tell you we should be able to bring you up and online in 5 days. We should be able to take you through a 2-week POC. But then we'll throw all that out the window and tailor it to what you need if your business is slightly different and you need to prove it differently. And so instead of me kind of trying to convince you of all of these things, yes, we have page load time benefits and increases in pages per visit and increases in conversion rate. But I think it's more compelling to kind of understand how a real user realized the process with Yotta and the experience he's been having ever since. And so I'll turn it over to Meir. Just click.
Okay, so we've been using Yotta for about, I would say about 1.5 years, 2 years now. And one of the things that that as medical supply realized was that when we started the business, I just want to talk about for a moment the experiences and the goals that we've had. We started the business. I realized that there's as being an EMT in New York, a lot of elderly people did not have the supplies and the equipment needed in order to be able to make their lives more comfortable and easier. Things were very expensive. They didn't have the appropriate walker, the appropriate diabetic supplies and needles and things like that. I also realized that that although there were some medical supply companies out there, and there was a little bit of a marketplace for it, but it was still lacking a centralized online experience where people can actually come and purchase anything from from a diabetic syringe to a gauze pad to to a wheelchair or like a power wheelchair. So that got me thinking, and we basically decided to launch Medical Supply Depot, offering a big selection of brand name medical supplies, and we always buy them at discounts, trying to push that to customers. By me, customer experience is really the top priority at Medical Supply Depot. I focus all our efforts on making sure that everybody gets the proper shopping experience and the proper customer support experience, and we obviously deliver the items very quickly. So if you're looking at this slide, you'll see that back in around 2010, 2011, we've had, we were, mainly focused on MSD. We've had a site that was, very, colorful. It had a lot going on. We had some security logos, customer testimonials, and things like that. And one of the things that I've decided over time, as I was pitching the site and trying to grow sales, is that our site was really slow, and people used to come to our site. Some would complain, some would just bounce, and it was just a very, very bad experience. Although once we got them on the phone, the experience was awesome. We obviously wanted them to actually make the purchase online and go through the entire experience online. So we've redesigned the site. We've come up with a lot of white space, put some top selling categories, and we've tamed down on our color choices. And as part of that, what we did was we actually recoded the site to make it a very lightweight site. And what we've noticed was that even though we previously had customer testimonials and a lot of additional badges and things like that, all that really didn't matter. What mattered was that the site was loading faster. But we still felt that there was a need to engage with the CDN. So I came to a point where I started looking at different CDNs, and Ari mentioned Akamai and some of the other big names out there, and I've spoken to all of them, and each one is a great product in itself. But when it came down to the bottom line, it was really difficult to engage with a CDN for a site that's being hosted that we don't host ourselves. And they asked a ton of questions, and they were very into how is the server set up, and how is this, and how is that, things that were way out of my league, things that I had no clue what they were talking about, and I was just scratching my head, are we ever going to get a CDN in place? So I did some research online. I found this company called Yotta, interesting name, didn't know anything about them, talked to them a little bit, and they said they can prove it to us that they're the right fit for us. So we ran an A/B test, and it was actually tracked in our Google Analytics. And what we found was that we were doing really, really well with them, and the support was phenomenal. They onboarded us pretty quickly. If there's ever a little question that I have, I just open up a ticket, and literally, even on a weekend, I would get an answer at 7 o'clock at night saying, "Okay, we took care of it," or we know what the issue was, or it was sometimes an issue on our end, which we took care of immediately as well. And it was just a really, really, really good experience. And looking at the entire at the entire package. I'm pretty confident that we made a good choice. And to prove it, if you're looking at this slide, our site became 260% faster. Okay, the bounce rate went down 13%. Our conversion rate went up about 9%, and there were people that were spending significantly longer on our website due to the fact that our pages are now much faster rendering. And I couldn't be happier, with the decision that that we've made. I find that Yotta has been a partner with us, and like I said, they do all the work on their end. It was really us saying we want to go with them, and they really made every effort to make it as easy, simple, and as an enjoyable experience as possible, using their solution.
Anybody have questions? Great. Then thank you very much.
Thank you.